Guessing we are live by now. I'm guessing that kind of thing. Just make the test, usual test. Yeah. We are live by now. Yes, so I'm correct. We were live. What a surprise. Anyway, all right, so we're doing. Damn, mouse is fucked up today for some reason. Don't exactly know. My mouse is not working quite. Anyway, it's always something. It really is always something. Every day there's some kind of something that isn't quite right. And you have to do something about it. But anyway, all right. So yes, the purpose of these rooms is becoming less and less obvious. Beyond just responding to a couple of comments, and there's only been a couple, and so like I don't know, Plan B or something, eventually. So yeah, it's just having this physics conversation apparently is difficult to do with people, where they say, I think, and blah, 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 blah. And you demonstrate how, well, I think there's a better way to look at that and think about that. And doesn't this explanation fit the evidence better? This kind of things. But you can't really do that with people. It's all or nothing, my way or the highway. And, I am similarly minded, but in the sense that I'll listen to their argument and I'll point out why I disagree with it, where they'll just say things like, you are dumb as hell. All right, and that's a response to a Ken Wheeler video, right, which is just all jargon, no explanation of anything, not even close to an explanation of something. Nothing you could visualize and say, I now understand how magnets work and why they attract and why they repel. No, you don't get any idea whatsoever. Complete rubbish. So, you're as shitty as crap. There. But whatever. Useless rubbish. All right. So goodbye, Rick Flair. I'm sure he doesn't have any flair. So another troll. Oh, look at all this crap he typed. Oh, look at all this crap. So no doubt the cowboy or something. Who else would invest all this time to write all this crap? All right. Since my comment is invisible on your main channel, other people responded to it. I saw it. So again, this invisible thing, invisible to who? I'll post it here as well, just to spite you. Well, great attitude, shithead. As the great proverb says, dogs bark, but the caravan moves on. I don't know. That's a great proverb. Not in my book of great proverbs. That one doesn't even come close to mediocre, let alone great. I mean, really, what? What? You are the dog barking at the caravan of physics. And so everybody who ever was a dissident is doing the same thing. Einstein barked, and somehow people listened because of a pretty much bullshit experiment that didn't actually demonstrate him right, but because the New York Times wasn't a scientist, it couldn't tell that the experiment was ludicrous or that the math rig was preposterously silly. No explanation for whatsoever for rigging the math twice to make it possible. I mean, so um, whatever. You're the one eating the dog vomit, so fuck you, idiot. At least I'm not doing that. Sure, keep on barking. The world gives zero fucks. And again, I don't really care about what the world does. Beyond the point that it's rather frustrating that they've decided to be obnoxiously imbecilic, where they don't even want to hear it, and they don't want to all have any kind of reasonable argument where they actually counter something that's been proposed or they actually answer a question that's been posed. Instead, they just say this kind of crap. Bravo, asshole. So yeah, that would be nice if that was different, but it doesn't change anything. What, do you think you're going to convince me that I'm wrong with this idiotic argument? Just like flat earthers. Well, it's absolutely nothing like flat earthers. Why don't you show me the flat earther channel where they let people propose questions and where they actually answer them? Because there's a ton of questions you can pose to them quite easily about Well, what about the circumstance where if I'm coming into port on a boat, I see the top of the buildings first? Why does that happen? And climate change deniers. And again, so just I can just say the same thing about you. You're just a religious kook, dogmatically clinging to your theocracies and your traditions and your dumbass notions, and you can't grow a brain and say, oh, I see, there can be a better explanation. Yeah. So done, you're dispensed with. You are completely and utterly ignored and dismissed, and rightfully so. So that's your opinion. I would argue that you're 100% wrong. Gee, isn't that a surprise? And that the truth will be found out. And that what's your again? Why don't you explain to me what somebody who's as arrogant as you, what their penalty should be when they're wrong? Just really entirely wrong. 100% the wrong answer. You've chosen badly, and you've demonstrated that you don't choose by any standards that could mean anything to a decent person. You choose by standards that couldn't mean anything to a decent person. You're just an asshole. Some way no one bothers to seriously argue with flat earthers. Well, some people do bother. They actually do point out arguments, the ones I just made, and they need to do that. I mean, they have some obligation. You don't think they have an obligation? I think they do have an obligation to make arguments. Can you make any of those, by the way? There's no need to make counter arguments against your delusions of grandeur. So again, my delusions of grandeur aren't the simple questions I've asked that you don't have answers for. The fact that your theory explains where none of the energy comes from for any of the biggest movement in the universe. It's just magical energy from the magical store. You're mockably absent evidence for your dogma. Your God there's no evidence of your God. You censor and block them all anyway. Well, that's just a lie. So again, lie some more, right? I don't censor and block anybody who makes an argument. All you're doing is character assassinating. All you're doing is point your finger at me and say, you can't be the one who says these things. You can't change anything. You can't say anything. We're just going to dismiss you, not with an argument, not with a fact, not with a link to an experiment, just with your fucking goddamn attitude, your fucking arrogance, you fucking piece of shit. So you actually finished high school. Congrats, buddy. Again, I wasn't changing, again, not my standard. That's your standard. I wouldn't care in the first place whether somebody who was right, was making an argument and was challenging with questions you can't answer, whether they graduated or high school or not wouldn't change for the fact that their questions are hard to answer. So why don't you find a high school dropout or even a grammar school kid, all right, to challenge me with a question? Why don't you have them challenge me with one question I can't answer on the subject of fucking physics, you little weaselly cunt? Can you do that? Can you manage it? Oh. Still, I bet you've never solved the basic calc equation in your life. Well, who cares? Again, calculus isn't the physical reality we live in. You think this is calculus. That's what you think. You think the physical reality is that there's an equation that this thing is saying I must obey an equation. You don't think there's an actual physical process that takes place and the pen moves relative to the surface of the earth. You don't think there's a physical process where the atoms and the little bits inside there actually are physically being acted on. And that, yes, you can model that with an equation that accounts for the basic movements. But obviously, those are just basic movements. They don't have anything to do with each particular atom. They just have to do with a generalization over the whole, over a whole period of time and over a whole mass of trillions of little bits. But that isn't physical reality, retard. So again, this is your understanding of reality. You think understanding it's nice to pet your cat is a calculus equation. I don't think so, asshole. And yet you have the hubris to claim that the entire world community of what? Yeah, all the people who aren't Muslims or Catholics or other kinds of crazy delusional nuts. Don't you really mean the community of physics elites who sit in an ivory tower and decide what shall be taught? Of actual educated, lifelong physicists Yes, again, and physicists who are mostly mathematicianists, they're really don't interested in a physical model. And as Einstein demonstrates and quantum mechanics demonstrates, quantum mechanics has no physical model. Richard Feynman's description of quantum mechanics is fundamentally different than the one most people argue for. That is Heisenberg and Huygens. That's not the quantum mechanics Richard Feynman describes. He doesn't talk about wave interference, does he? I haven't seen him do that. Is wrong, and you are the only Messiah on the planet that will bring the truth. Well, again, these are your paraphrases and descriptions. I'm claiming no such thing. I'm just making an argument for what I see and what I can discern to be correct answers versus incorrect answers based on evidence. Now, you want to call me a Messiah because I'm doing that. I think that just demonstrates that you don't give a fuck about the truth or a true description of anything. You think I'm doing this because I'm on some Messiah pilgrimage. No, it merely appears this way to me. You think I'm being dishonest when I say to you, this is very convincing to me. This argument makes a lot of sense to me. It makes sense that, yes, magnetism is a polarized force, and that's why it's so much stronger than the other forces. But yes, they all move the speed of light. Therefore, they all have to be the same force. That all makes sense. You don't think so? You don't think any of that makes sense? I'm saying that's your problem, not my problem. Shit for brain. All right, you of all people, whatever that means. So again, this standard is somehow, it's not about the argument, it's not about the evidence, it's not about the coherency of a model. It's just about some kind of personality thing. And I don't have the right personality, and I don't have the right heritage, and I don't have the right to, mental disabilities or this or that to be treated with any kind of respect, says you. Fuck you, is what I say to you. Fuck you. I hope you die soon and badly. You're just such a scuzzy piece of shit. This is such crappy argumentation. You shouldn't shout people down. You shouldn't be heckling with this kind of bad fucking rhetoric. Make an argument or drop the fuck dead. That's some really funny shit, as kooky as it gets. Yeah, by your standards. I see a lot kookier. You probably voted for Trump, you stupid Weasley dumbass. That's probably why you have this fucking stick up your ass. This weed, this pricker bush. How are you different from the other kooks out there? I already pointed out how I'm different. I'm obviously making these live videos. I'll respond to questions. I am looking to be challenged by a physics argument. Can you make a physics argument where there are not? Like the ones you have rooms with. So again, I don't have rooms with them. I just join in a conversation about physics, just like you're sort of joining in this conversation. And what's your contribution? You're just mocking the other participants. You're not making an argument explaining how they're wrong. Now, my behavior in those rooms is exactly the opposite. I point out how that's a preposterous proposal. Where do you have any evidence for that? You're saying, Henri Poincaré is the most censored scientist in the history of mankind, and blah, 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 blah. Well, where's you have a shred of evidence that this guy is so fucking important that the whole government has to have a conspiracy to stop you from reading what he wrote? Doesn't that sound a bit an extraordinary claim that deserves extraordinary evidence? Now, that's how you make an argument, jackass. The ones you call tinfoil hat nuts, LOL. Yes, and I've made the distinction between me and them, okay? I can't point out any clearer. They misparaphrase conventional physics. They cheat it. I don't. And I make arguments where I'm expecting somebody to attempt to challenge them with some kind of evidence. All right, there isn't a single real physicist, whatever the fuck that means, in the world afraid of your amateur endeavors. Well, they appear to be afraid. So that's all I can say. And when I do challenge them on something they say, like with Professor Lewin, they say something silly. Like I say, where's the evidence for there being a different kind of redshift, like it mattering, whether it's an emitter or a receiver, when it's sound waves but there is no difference when it's some other form of energy. And he says Sputnik, which is just obviously a silly answer to a serious question. Sputnik isn't sound waves. for fuck's sake. Okay, so they just ignore you. They ignore me because they have a vested interest in not being made a fool of by an amateur. And there's every reason to believe they are afraid of that because they don't have rational answers. Just like Feynman didn't have a rational answer to a simple question: why do magnets attract? And instead of answering the question, he went through a whole convoluted explanation saying, well, it's a magic force actually, and I don't have another magic force in reality to compare it to, so I can't really explain it to you with something you know, because most of the stuff you know isn't magical forces, but you don't believe in Tinkerbell. But the answer is Tinkerbell. I just don't want to say Tinkerbell did it. Because they have better things to do than convene 1,000 delusional weirdos on the internet. Yes, well, I've offered them real money to do it, though. So that's the funny part. So I've offered them, good money. A few hours work for $1,000, that's pretty good money. And for the real talking heads, I've offered $5,000. That's real money, to most people on earth. You should be grateful that people even care to watch your repetitive daily bitch and moan sessions instead of acting like you are doing your subscribers a favor. Well, frankly, it is to their benefit. They're in on something at its beginnings. So they should feel kind of, oh, yeah, I get it. But the fact is, there is nobody here. There is nobody who understands physics. So there's no point in convincing people who have no knowledge of the subject. I mean, that doesn't add up to much. And clearly people aren't doing that. I mean, I don't have a bunch of my Inmendon people coming here going, great job, Gary, because they know it would be bullshit because they don't know anything about physics. You condescending prick. No, you're the one playing the condescension game. I'm playing the man up, have balls game. I'm saying, go ahead. I'm risking. I'm taking the chance. You cowards aren't. Sitting there with your contorted face full of disdain. So again, more who cares what somebody's face looks like. Mocking and insulting your own listeners. Yes, I'll do that because they are relatively mockable in many circumstances. Their questions are idiotic and often off the subject. They can't seem to do any of the simplest things correctly. They are doing you a favor listening to you. I don't give a shit about their participation, frankly. I'm just saying that's the truth of it. I don't give a fucking shit about the participation of people who don't know anything about physics. It is a subject that requires some sort of knowledge. Now, maybe they don't have to have a huge amount of mechanical knowledge or engineering knowledge or even common sense knowledge to be able to get the physics laws, the basic, if they have some familiarity with what the inverse square law is, in terms of the idea that the strength and weakness of the force increases by a multiple. And they can understand some of the basic force laws, like energy goes in, energy always has to come out, that kind of stuff. Well, they can probably understand, follow along what I'm getting at. But obviously them being convinced doesn't add up to much because they don't have enough context to know, is he really saying something important? So again, why like, again, you think I'm doing this for fame or something? You just can't get anything right. Without YouTube, so again, like I need YouTube. I'm not doing this for fun. You just don't seem to understand at all. I'm not lying here. I'm not sitting there telling any kind of fucking story. I'm just saying, look, there's this important thing, the unification theory, that was the most important thing in physics for 100 years. And yes, I believe I have found the closet that it was sitting in collecting dust. So fuck you. Let's see, YouTube audience, and you'd be absolutely nobody rotting away in your hermit cave. Well, again, I don't know how I'm somebody in this current circumstance. And again, regardless, it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that if you discovered something and you were quite certain you have discovered it, how would you behave differently exactly? Asswipe. Fuck for brain. I must admit, you trained your minions well. Again, where's the example of any minions on this channel? Where is the example of a single fucking minion? You've banned everyone with any self-esteem. Well, again, obviously give me the name of one person who deserves to be unbanned. Go ahead, give me the screen name of the person who deserves to be unbanned, the person who treated me with civil respect asked civil questions, and didn't even have an obnoxious screen name. Just give me one example of the great foil, the person who was getting to something important. Give me their name. And left only those who know to you even after they openly shit on them in your own videos. I don't even know what that means, but regardless. You're still talking, aren't you, shithead? More whining. If you think there's some argument that hasn't been answered, why aren't you making that argument instead of typing all this rubbish, all this irrelevant rubbish? Why don't you make the great argument that I have left unanswered? You troll. Let's see. Hello, my friend. Bent fuck. So we can just delete him. I mean, really, I'm supposed to let my channel be some place where people just have obnoxious screen names and say, this is what we do for fun. I mean, come on. You got to be kidding me. You think those are the standards? All right. What if I drilled a hole through the earth and dropped a coin in it? Would the coin oscillate if there's no air resistance? Yeah. Well, and eventually, though, it would stop oscillating and just sit in the middle because there's no gravity there. It's a quiet place. You can ask that question to anybody else on Earth. There's really no point in wasting my time with it. I mean, my physics doesn't change that truth any. It's the same gravity inside their theory. They also understand there's no gravity inside the Earth, although they don't explain how it's possible to have no gravity at the center of the Earth when the gravity is an inverse square law. Because frankly, how do you internally create gravity, point source gravity, if you don't have a center point source? So they need now their sucking engine is really in trouble because there's no place to put the motor for their vacuum cleaner. Because it can't be in the center. I believe they would oscillate by single harmonic motion. Well, like I said, the motion will not be harmonic over time because obviously okay, if there's absolutely no resistance, then yes, it'll just go back and forth from surface to surface forever. I can't be sure that you can't get into arguments about created EMF and what the substance is made out of and something being a little bit frictiony, but yes, theoretically it goes back and forth forever. Scuzzy, LOL. I'm going to use that. I don't know what that is, but whatever. Are you a flat universer? Okay, so just complete waste of people's time. Okay, so go to hell. Fuck off. I mean, I really don't have to. Is there any reason? Okay, I'll just remove it. But I'll give a warning. Well, don't waste my time. I've made it really clear what I am. There's no, you just have to watch a few of the introduction videos, the overview videos. I've explained what I am. I'm not part of any other club. I have a theory, and I've explained the theory in detail. I don't need to answer these obnoxious, do you beat your wife? Do you molest children? Should I just ask you? Answer the fucking question. I asked you a serious question. Do you molest children, you creepy fuck? God damn, you people are stupid as fuck. All right. See, what good are these commenters? They shouldn't be insulted. Now, I'm in a physics talk room, and this asshole is asking retarded questions. The gravitational strength in the Earth's center would be 0 because there's roughly even distribution of mass in all directions. Yeah, I'm just saying though, if the machine that creates gravity, all right, can move to any location, the center of gravity, right? So if I'm in the center of the Earth, theoretically, the center of gravity is in 2 different locations, right? But we know those aren't the center of gravity for the Earth. We know the machine creating the Earth's gravity isn't going to be changed because I'm in the center. So it's still going to be producing gravity as if it has a center of gravity where I am. So I'm sitting there in the center where there's no gravity, and theoretically, this spot is supposed to be radiating gravity, and it's not, obviously, because I'm sitting here, and it's not doing anything. All right, news flash. The dumb cunts don't really need you. I don't need them either, so they can just all fuck off, right? Okay, they don't need me, I don't need them, then they can just fuck off. They're not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for someone who's capable of challenging my arguments with some sort of evidence and some sort of rational argument that has something to do with physical reality, not the physical reality of my hair or any other, whether I graduated high school or not. If you disappear tomorrow, again, this is just who cares? I mean, who cares? You are the one who needs to constantly vent and be heard. So again, this is another one of your theories that's wrong. So not only do you have physics completely wrong, you obviously don't know anything about human psychology. If you two, here he says, repeating the same sentence again, if you two disappeared tomorrow, but we'll be fine. So will I. Well, you think I won't be, but I will be. Okay. It's really whatever the world changes into, I'll have to change with it, idiot. And I'll use a different approach. I mean, I just don't understand. We advance technologically to the point where we can make these videos. You think Einstein, if he was alive today, well, he would at least be doing some theater. Okay. He'd at least show up at some forums now and then. But if you think you're really, if somebody was really passionate about physics, wouldn't they get on this medium and talk about physics? It's sort of a demonstration that they're really just passionate about their position at a university or their position in being able to monetize their capital by keeping it away from the public. So they only get a little bit of it here and a little bit there. So that way it can mean something. But if they did this open thing, you know, if they had any real passion for the subject, this is what they would do. You can logically figure that out, can't you? There's lots of people on YouTube who demonstrate that, you know, people who are passionate about their fish tanks or passionate about gardening or passionate, and you can go find videos of them, people talking about those subjects because they're interested. All right. In other words, deflate your massive ego, asshole. No, fucking eat yours and choke on it and die. You're the one with a preposterous ego. You think you know the truth. You think you know better than everybody else what the truth is. So you know who's right and who's wrong because you're an authority. On what? You haven't demonstrated. You're an anonymous coward who doesn't even have the guts to say who the fuck you are. You have to operate on a fake screen name. All right. You ain't all that. Well, compared to you, I'm everything. Trillions of times more massive. Outside of philosophy, you are irrelevant. So again, this philosophy thing, as if I'm somehow relevant philosophically. Why? Why would that be a reasonable conclusion? Clearly, I'm not very relevant philosophically either. But I expect that to be a more challenging subject because you're trying to convince morons. In this arena, I'm trying to get to people who actually have a little bit of intelligence, and they should be able to do some reasoning and figure out that, yes, I kind of got the goods on them. I found the flaws in their where they fundamentally went off the tracks. I've sort of detailed where they went off the tracks. All right, bent space and wave theory. These were big mistakes in terms of interpretations, and fact. All right, can you imagine any other philosopher or scientist who would think it's a good idea to put videos of themselves walking around naked and jerking off on their website right next to their intellectual works? Well, that's another lie. The two parts of people's lives don't have anything to do with each other. People have all kinds of things they do in their private life that doesn't have anything to do with this other life they're living. And I think they should be entitled to do that. Apparently, you don't think they should be entitled to do that. You think they should have to be they should have to conform to your standards, and they should have to suppress who they are, the truth of who they are. So if they're gay or something, they think that might hurt their credibility in the community. They should keep their gayness quiet. You're a repressive turd. Clearly a petty one with a very small penis, which I'd like to prove. I'd like to have that contest. Hey, here's my proposed physics theory. And an inch and a left, there's a link you can click to my dick. Enjoy. It's not the truth. So again, you can keep saying that's the truth. It's not the truth. How preposterous. and you expect to ever be taken seriously. Yeah, I don't see any problem. Frankly, like again, these are your problems. How would it make any difference? I mean, you just keep arguing as if it matters. Even if I was convicted of being a serial killer, you know, the Unabomber, for example, his treatise, his manifesto, might have meant something if it was rational. The two things can go together. So again, listen, my personal character or how I choose to live my life really has absolutely nothing to do with whether I can make an argument or not. And you're the one who fails to make an argument, except for these irrelevant arguments. Who but a closed-minded, repressive weasel could think these are important arguments? But of course, we both kind of understand that you are doing that deliberately. This is obvious self-sabotage, isn't it, buddy? No, it's just the fact that I frankly am sick of living in the fucking creepy world created by assholes like you. The dishonest, fake, phony veneer world of fake screen names and fake personalities and fake everything. Fuck you and your fake. I'm sick of it and I don't want to play it. So eat shit and die. Again, it's my honest statement to you. I hope you do get a horrible cancer and you die very painfully and choke on your own fucking vomit. You're a horrible human being, a disgusting, despicable creep of a fucker. And I hope you die badly. That's a sincere statement. I don't want to have to cover it up or veneer it in any way. You're despicable, fucker. You deserve to get what you deserve, and you clearly do deserve it. You don't have any merit. You don't have any qualification to talk this way to other people. None whatsoever. You haven't demonstrated a single thing that disqualifies me in having or making this argument or having this conversation. You haven't proven I haven't watched hundreds of lectures over the last 7 years. You haven't proven that I haven't in that manner qualified myself to make arguments. You're just an obnoxious troll. That's all you fucking are. You're worthy of being puked on and fucking thrown in the trash. All right, staying small and irrelevant in both physics and philosophy. More power to you. Enjoy your obscurity. And again, my obscurity has absolutely nothing to do with my personal lifestyle. Any honest person would know that. It has had nothing to do with that. So you're just talking absolute shit. 99% of the people who watch my videos have no clue where I live or how I live or any of that shit. It's only goddamn obsessive, crazy fucks like you who give a shit and publish my address and do all of this interfering in my personal life. Yeah, you little creep. All right. Goodbye. So anyway, enough of that. I mean, it's a real thing out there. I mean, these people, these are obviously like the Ken Wheeler fans. They can't make an argument. These people are just fanatics. It is a religion. And, and you just get the same kind of hostility, just like the Christians. We have to go smite them. We can't argue them. We can't convince them with an argument about how wonderful our God is because it's bullshit and they know it. All right, so let's see. Amazing new Tesla Roadster will use rocket. Again, more crap. What does that have to do with a fucking thing I ever talk about? What? Tesla cars are way overpriced pieces of shit, silly person. I mean, what are you typing this shit for? God, you goddamn people suck. Might as well delete this one. God, it just doesn't make any difference. But might as well just to point out I hate your guts. All right, so obviously Michael Jimez is just another asshole. So I gave him a second chance, so that was fair enough, right? Yes, fair enough. Waste of time. So there's quite obviously no people capable, competent to discuss physics or interested. It's just quite clear. And especially in the context of having to do it with me. I think if I keep going to the natural philosophy Saturday morning things, um, I have a feeling that the number of participants will decline just because they'll figure out, oh, somebody's going to call us on our shit is in the room. But they really are. It's like the rope theory guy, totally inaccessible. I mean, in any real way. Not interested in being face to face challenged. None of these people are. So, what else? So, I have been doing a little bit of, working on writing. Um, and perhaps I'll do another paper and go through that whole submitting bullshit, which is again more crap, more hoop jumping. Um, and then, but yeah, it's figuring out how to format it all. And then, the Jeff Yee guy kind of had a good strategy in the sense that he did some videos, what is light? What is this? What is that? I think his answers are completely wrong. Um, but I think of doing a contrast, explain it as simple terms and then have, footnotes to the more detailed explanation because you can go so deep into the details. Um, getting into the whole argument about gravity, and then you get into the argument about how gravity manifests and the fact that what converts it into an inverse square law force, is the fact that there's all these little bits that are making the gravity. The gravity from an object large enough to manifest gravity is being manifested because each little bit isn't really going in one straight line. They're all going in different lines. Um, and that's the force it's made out of is, forces in a straight line. And so, I mean, you can get pretty deep into these conversations when you get into the minutia, the details of each force and how exactly it's manifested. But the fact that their physics has nothing, there's just no connection at all. The inverse square law is just some emergent property for which they have no explanation. Stop, make papers, whatever that means. Write a long and extensive. No, fuck that. Encapsulate. Well, if a long and extensive book isn't exactly going to encapsulate. You think you could be a little more irrational? Make a short, long book. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. You can't encapsulate in a long book. That's not encapsulating. But anyway. Is this on what? I don't even know what that is. Well, obviously a troll. Just whatever. It's not the subject again. Make a physics argument with somebody. Arguing about whether it's better to write papers or whether it's better to write a book or whether it's better to, give Neil deGrasse Tyson a blowjob. I really couldn't give a fuck about this strategy shit. Not the goddamn fucking subject. The contrast between conventional physics and my theory is the subject. But nobody can do the subject because most people they haven't paid enough attention to know the theory, like the Piros. It's funny how there's just absolutely so far. I mean, there could be somebody that disagrees with me, and you think they want to make an argument. I mean, I sit here and say, go ahead, can't you make a civil argument? It's not possible for you to ask a civil question. I can ask civil questions. Why can't they handle it? Yeah, well, again, you know, jibber jabber. Hello, sir. Glad to see you live. Well, I really don't care whether you're glad. I mean, it's nothing personal. But again, that's not what I'm doing this for. I mean, you can point out how the conventional theory is flawed and point out one of its flaws and say, well, you could also argue about this flaw or this flaw. Or you could defend the conventional theory by pointing out, why aren't photons affected by the inverse square law? I mean, why does gravity change what it's doing because a photon went by? So what am I trying to wrap my head around? So what? I'm trying to wrap my head around, but I don't think I understand it very well. Again, I don't know. You can't be simpler. It's a push universe. The cosmic background radiation, you've heard of that, right? It's pushing everything together in a sense. And you can sort of see it that simply. Everything gets pushed into everything else. When it moves, something's being pushed. Every movement is a push. You don't seem to consider it civil to ask questions you deem critical to your theory. You don't seem to consider it civil. Again, if that's what people did, I wouldn't have a problem. But where's the evidence of those questions being asked in a civil manner? Go ahead, recite to me the person I blocked and show me how it was a rationally, politely asked question. Go ahead, because you're not going to be able to do it. Just an assertion on your part. Oh, yes, you blocked all of us legitimate complainers. No, I haven't. You waste your time talking to psychotics. I don't. I don't want to waste my time doing that. And frankly, if people can't just answer a question, you point out how the lens is the wrong shape for gravitational lensing, not a focusing lens. Where did I get a civil answer? Where did I even get an attempt to make a civil answer? And so, should I allow people to make snarky comments about how I haven't done something or I haven't answered something when they can't answer these basic questions I've asked? When you're talking about photons being in gravity twice as long, are you referring to special relativity? Yeah, I'm referring to the two gimmicks, the fact that make lensing a mathematical possibility. Seeing solar lensing was an impossibility till Einstein showed up, because before Einstein there was two things that made it impossible. First, the inverse square law, because the gravity diminishes so quickly you can't even get out of the corona. So there's no way you could see something because it's in the corona and it's like just going to get scattered. You can't not going to be able to tell whether it's gravitationally lensed because it's a tiny angle change you're looking for. And then the second one blew up the angle change, because now we just declare that photons are in the gravity twice as long as they are factually in the gravity because they think they are. So instead of being in the gravity for 1 second, if that was the number, that's how long it took to get from here to there, is 1 second for the photon to do that. Because the photon thinks it took 2 seconds, therefore it got affected by twice as much gravity. Do you think that's a legitimate fact? Honest inquiry is quite rare in human rhetoric. Well, apparently, I don't know. I've gotten more honest rhetoric in other conversations. Physics is especially poor. Sometimes you get a repulsive force in certain interactions, like this is going to go anywhere. And sometimes you seem to get an attractive force. Well, I just explained to you how the theory says it's always, 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 always a push. The pull is a low pressure created. There is no attractive force. I've made it clear that doesn't happen. There's just more pressure on the outside, less pressure on the inside. It looks like attraction, but it isn't. I said that clearly. Now I understand that that they are different interactions. Well, again, there is no attractive force, but I don't really understand that part very well. So again, I don't know. It's not that part. I mean, it's not that complicated, right? Photons are at a frequency, little bits moving the speed of light at a frequency, moving in a straight line. Magnetism is those little bits, but they have a character about them, a difference, a polarization, you could call it. And the one kind are diverted, so they come into the magnet in all directions. And one kind is diverted, that means it comes out one end of the magnet, and the other kind comes out the other end of the magnet. Is there something hard about figuring that out? That seems pretty fucking simple to me. And then I explained electrons and protons, and why they interact the way they do is because when the force is the electron force bounces off of electrons, the proton force bounces off of protons. But when the electron force hits a proton, it takes a 90-degree turn. And when a proton force hits an electron, it takes a 90-degree turn. What's so fucking complicated? It is civil. It is civil to say that you are mistaken. Again, this isn't how anybody talks here, so this is just all a waste of my time. That you are mistaken about the gravitational lens being a concave type. I'm saying, fine. What, somebody can say I'm mistaken without providing a single shred of evidence of how that's possible. The optical lens, traditionally known, bends the outside light more and the inside light less. That's just a fact. That's what a focusing lens does. A gravity lens does exactly the opposite. It bends the light in the middle a lot, and it bends the light on the edges not at all. That's the truth of the circumstance. Gravity doesn't make a focusing lens. So you saying I'm mistaken doesn't mean anything if you don't explain how I am mistaken, you fucking nut. Is it civil to speculate that you are misinterpreting the inverse square? How the fuck am I misinterpreting? You're the one who doesn't seem to have the proper interpretation. You seem entirely clueless how the fucking thing works. I mean, the regular lens, again, it bends the light on the outside the most, and the gravity lens bends the light on the outside the least. What can't you understand about that simple counter argument to that nonsense drivel? How have I misunderstood? Concepts simple, you are not simple to everyone else. Whatever that, again, more useless crap. I'm just saying, if it isn't simple to you, then yes, you're in the wrong room, because I've made it as simple. I draw the pictures of it. I mean, if you're too fucktarded to follow along, then yes, go do something the fuck else, because I think I've made it. I think grammar school kids could understand me. If I was in a 5th grade class with a blackboard and I explained to them before their brains were warped by nonsense, okay, I think they would say, oh yeah, I get that. But the lens always bends the light inward, thus focuses. How can it possibly do that, Piero? I mean, that's just absolute nonsense. If it's not bending the light because the gravity's too weak on the outside, number one, it's not bending it inward. So how is it exactly doing that? How does the concave lens do that? The gravity lens always bend inward. We're talking about a lens. They claim the lens is making the eye object brighter. Don't you understand the claim? It's magnifying. Magnification requires you to make an enlargement and then look at the enlargement. And the gravity lens isn't going to create the enlargement. All of the middle would be gone anyway. You wouldn't even have middles to any of your images. But the outside of the lens, the gravity goes the wrong way. The light that needs to be bent more is bent less. That's the truth of it. It can't do the Einstein lens ring thing. It can't do any of that because the lens is the wrong shape. Well, again, you're saying it produces distorted images. They're obviously not distorted. You can see detail of little stars in every one of those galactic images of a galaxy being lensed. So what are you telling me? That there's no detail? There's little pinpoints of stars. You can still see that it's a galaxy. That's how they know it's a galaxy. They can see the fucking individual stars. So that's just more crap. And again, explain solar lensing by this theory. Explain how you can lens an object, do solar lensing with a lens that bends the light less on the outside and bends it more on the inside. Show me how that lens could do solar lensing. All right, look, there's no point. You're obviously belligerently retarded, so I'll draw you a new picture or something. You know, I mean, you're just going to keep making arguments that lenses do things they don't do. That's why they're shaped different, because each shape does a certain thing. And you can't keep imagining the gravity lens like a conventional magnifying lens, because that's not what it's doing. It's not bending the light in the right proportions. It's more like a spherical lens than a parabolic lens. Well, again, what does that even mean? A spherical lens would still work better than the opposite of a sphere. You're obviously a spherical lens. A round globe does the same thing I'm talking about. It bends the light more on the outside than it does to the inside. I don't know the images where lens galaxies has star revealed. Don't think so. Well, you haven't looked at any then. Go look at the website of all the lensed objects from the Hubble telescope. Show me the image that doesn't have any resolution. Show me something that's just a white blob. None of them are just white blobs. None. Let's see. It's okay. So I don't know, lens galaxy. Okay. So yeah. So he hasn't even looked at the evidence. I don't think you're being too aggressive, or someone with the burden of proof. You don't think you're being too aggressive. Again, the burden should be the same as Einstein's burden or anybody else's. What was Einstein? How did Einstein meet his burden of proof? Where the fuck was relativity ever proven? Where? The Eddington experiment is rubbish. That's what got him the headline in the New York Times. The relationship between velocity and clocks breaking, our metabolism degrade, doesn't have any necessary connection to Einstein whatsoever. Maybe it's you who is deterministically passive aggressive and therefore hostile to correction. Well, again, I'm just saying, go ahead, give me the screen name of the person who was perfectly polite and how they argued with me, and I should therefore think this is a perfectly fine way to argue. That if I was to do it on somebody else's video, that I should have perfect self-respect, that I'm making a respectable argument. I've never typed the crap people type on my videos on anyone else's videos. If you can't make a rational argument, then go fucking to hell. I mean, and the arguments aren't rational. There are arguments about whether or not I dropped out of high school or not. They're garbage as arguments. Fuck you. I don't need to be mature. I don't need this. I don't need that. I don't need you, fuckhead. What the hell is your fucking screen name? Anti-positron. What does that mean? What are you a reference to? Hmm? All right. No, a spherical lens doesn't, because the angle light hits the outside of the sphere. I'm not going to argue with you, but spherical lenses, globe lenses, which this isn't the subject because gravity doesn't create a globe lens. So, it's not even on the subject. So I'm not going to get into a whole argument about how much distortion there is in spherical lenses and how they don't focus light, but whatever. You have the burden of demonstrating how gravity produces a spherical lens. The evidence doesn't exist for resolving stars and galaxies through gravitational lens. That has not happened. Oh, you're just full of shit. So you really haven't looked at any of the images they claim. Go look at the smiley face image. Go look at it. You can see galaxies stretched. You can see the pieces of the galaxy. Many experiments in the last 10 years have verified Einstein's model. Many. Again, it's just more generic nonsense. And go look at those experiments. Show me one of them. I've gone to the, I've asked people to do it, and they send me to some stupid light scatter experiment with radio waves. And I've already explained how, yes, of course, I can send 10 gigawatts of radio waves into the corona of the sun, and I should expect to get some reflected back in a shorter path because of scatter. But scatter alone, there doesn't need to be anything other than scatter to explain that, because I'm getting back a tiny percentage of the original light I sent, which explains why it's not lensing. It's not gravity that's bending it. It's clearly scatter. Scatter will randomly produce a lensed image, but it'll be so fucking weak. It's not my, frankly, it's not entirely my obligation to be polite. Again, I'm not commenting on somebody else's stuff. You see what I'm saying? You just seem to not understand that how it works. Who has the higher burden? Well, just look back at this video when you are done and look at the response to me. Yeah, the response was, you didn't ask a civil question. It was a retarded question that didn't understand something very well. Yeah, you made a claim. You made a claim that somehow it's not easy to understand. And I made the counter argument, what don't you understand? All right. I mean, the physics is really quite simple. I mean, the photons are not waving or vibrating electromagnetic fields and all that shit. They're just little bits moving in a straight line, and they have a distance between them. That's pretty easy to understand, in my opinion. Not difficult at all. I mean, I could just remake the argument again. But I mean, you're making this assertion that somehow this is too complicated. It's not that complicated. It's a bullshit assertion. Yeah, I've made videos. So you can be as rude as you want if you're willing to make a video, because I can play your video and just prove like you don't have an argument. All you have is rudeness. I think I've done a good job of, ripping your videos new assholes. And I didn't do it by insulting you personally. Well, whatever. I don't want to argue over semantics. I didn't not understand it well. And I made the point. Well, if you can't understand it, then go somewhere else. Didn't I say that? Because frankly, I don't know how I can possibly make physics any simpler. I've made it as simple as it can be. There's just 4 little interactive forces. The bits all move one speed, the force bits. The matter bits kind of all do the same thing, except they have an opposite charge. I mean, I've made it as simple as it can be. And if you don't get it, well, then move on. I have no help for you. You can't understand my theory then. It just, sorry, I guess you can't understand it. You can understand bent space and you can understand quantum mechanics, but somehow you can't understand what I'm talking about. Well, I think that's a silly argument. But I have not been rude in these comments. You're not deleted, are you? Or in general comments, you have been rude. You're in your general comments, I've pointed out how obnoxiously sloppy your comments are. You make assertions, you prove with nothing, just as you did in this comment section. I mean, I didn't say the only reason why people get blocked is because they're rude. Did I say that somewhere? No, another reason they get blocked is if they make bold assertions and they never provide any kind of reasonable evidence. And when you finally force them to provide evidence, they do what you did, which is provide evidence of a rigged wave tank experiment. And I think it's pretty clear you insult me personally. No, not until you start it, fucker. You made all kinds of videos saying I'm an idiot and this is silly and blah, blah, the whole list of all the dismissive bullshit. You had no fucking understanding of the theory and you just dismissed it. Unforgivable crimes, in my opinion. My general issue is why I can't go ahead and answer you or ask you things through trying to be civil. My general issue is why can't I go ahead and answer you? Well, no, you can't answer me with non-evidenced proclamations from Pyrrho. Pyrrho, the authority, says. That's not answering the question. I don't even understand it, but half your comments aren't written very well. What is a novel way we can get even to test your interpretation? Well, like I said, I can do the radio interference experiment. That's a doable experiment, and prove that when two radio signals are sent out, they're not interfering with each other. They're simply jamming each other's signal. That is, the signals are on top of each other, and the receiver can't decipher one frequency from the other, so it doesn't know there's two signals there, because they're now the wrong filter, and the high band filter throws it out so it doesn't see it. But the energy still gets to the antenna, and that you could prove. The electrical energy gets to the antenna just as much in all the places where there's, radio plus radio equals no radio. In all those places, I can prove there's radio in all those places. Lots of radio. So, but see, what good will that do me? That'll be just disproving their radio interference theory. They'll still believe light somehow does it. But yeah, it is grabbable, that one. I mean, I just prefer somebody else do it who already has the equipment, but I guess, I'll eventually have to invest in it if nobody will do it. I mean, they always do the experiment the same way. They put a carrier tone on the signal and then go, look, see, we're not receiving any radio here. And no, you're not tuning any radio because you're at a frequency and it can't tune a jam signal. I mean, to think that they don't understand jamming. I mean, it's a pretty, well-known fact that if you want to jam somebody's radar, all I have to do is duplicate their frequency and you've jammed it. And where it spills from, let's see, how a way we can test which is all you propose to theoretical layers, whatever that means, and where it spills from what is right about conventional physics. Well, again, where is their hard proof? So you're saying I have to have hard proof, of gravity. Yeah. They have the same obligation. Where's their hard proof? Where's their photograph of the bent space making the thing move? Oh, that's right. They don't have one. You claim it was rigged. That's it's not only in dispute to somebody dishonest. Clearly, if you put waves that already are creating interference into the slit experiment, interference in will be interference out. So that's an obvious thing that anybody, that again, a sixth grader, that'll be the standard. If a sixth grader can understand why that experiment isn't honest, in the sense that you've changed the controls. In one experiment, you have a nice steady wave that isn't interfering with itself. In the other experiment, you have a noisy wave full of all kinds of vibrations bouncing off walls and everything else going into the two slits. Any idiot can understand how that's not a controlled experiment. You violated the rules. It's not a fair test. Any idiot. Well, who said you rigged it yourself? Did I say you did that? I had already seen the very video. I'd already seen it. It was something I wasn't aware of. So again, and it has no meaning because obviously, yes, look, we increased the frequency beyond the carrying capacity of the water, which means it's full of noise. Isn't it a surprise that noise comes out the other end? Yeah. No, it's not a surprise. Also, newborn rings, Newton's rings is caused by air gaps, not the wave function. I don't know who says that, but it's certainly not caused by the wave function, because the wave function is an angle, not a wave. The wave equation is an angle equation. There's no wave in the wave equation. There's an angle, sine theta. What I proposed is that there's electrons on the surface of all objects, free electrons, free-ish. And it becomes their static charge, but everything has them. And those electrons are what's being hit by the light. And that's why a single surface creates diffraction. So why don't you explain, obviously you're being a little hostile in your comment. I mean, to describe my theory that way. It's not air gaps. I kept pointing out its surfaces. I kept saying the two slit is the two surface, four surface experiment. The single slit has two surfaces, right? But we know that a single surface will do the same thing. So why don't you explain why single surfaces, why don't you explain why the edges of shadows are fuzzy? Okay, where's the second surface? It's only one surface. I don't think he's on a wagon, to tell you the truth. You know, once a drunk, always a drunk. You know, da, 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 da. Stephen, get your own life. I already have a mother. Oh, see, that's a pretty much an admission. Also, correct my typos. Okay. Well, it's true I talk to crazy people. Now, so he's just changing the subject. Without prejudice, I don't think that's why I was talking to you. And again, I don't really give a shit. I'm just saying, because you waste your time doing that, I have no obligation to waste my time doing that. I mean, you want to be distracted by trolls. Okay. I mean, I hope someday you can have a room with a little more popularity so you get a few more people in there, and then you can sit there and see how much time you want to waste on irrelevant rubbish. So again, I should just accept Amendum is certainly crazy. This isn't even the Amendum channel. You know, I mean, what's the point of it? I've made it clear. I'm looking for physics arguments. If you can't make a physics argument, haven't I made it clear enough? If you can't make a physics argument, fuck off. Can I make it any clearer than that? So I'm not cheating anybody who's in the room commenting, right? By saying, oh, you never told me I had to talk about physics. I mean, can I make it clear enough? So again, I already explained to you, it's not just about personal insults. It's about unevidenced assertions and belligerently just state them over and over again. Unevidenced assertions. You did it here in this comment section. You made the assertion that the galactic lensing images don't have any, there's nothing in the detail of the distortions that would indicate what the source of the light was. No, there's huge indications of the source. How would they know what is being lensed if they didn't see the little bits of the galaxy in the image? How would they know it was a galaxy? If it was just a blob of light, they wouldn't know what it was. They wouldn't, maybe it's a sun that's just a few hundred, few thousand, light years away. Let's see, you don't think your insult is personal. You don't think your insult is personal. Well, whatever. I don't think I bring insults to the table. That's my argument. And then they come at me, I'm going to throw them back. And obviously, our relationship is so fucking tarnished and ruined that, yeah, it's not going to stop. Why would it matter how far away it is? I'm sorry, there is no focus. We just declared, you just stated how there's no focus. and therefore the discrete bits of the object are not revealed. And now you're saying there's a focus. You can't have it both ways. Well, you're going to try, as you just did, to have it both ways. There's no other understanding. I don't even know what that even means. Well, obviously I was wrong. I've probably been talking to you because you're crazy all along. Okay, whatever that means. You know, what does that mean? So please fuck off. Again, like I'm somehow disturbing you in some way in your comment sections. That I waste any time at all, even acknowledging if I'm listening. I've probably been talking to you because you're crazy all along. There's no other understanding. Well, whatever. We clearly have no grounds for communication because we fundamentally have very different understandings of the universe and the world we live in. And in my opinion, yours is completely woo based and made out of irrational mush, both philosophically and physically. I think you believe in quantum mechanics because you want to believe. So I guess that's we're done with the the useless commentary from the commenters, as per usual. So, let's see. I guess there's nothing else. Just trying to see where Piro is. You might want to remember his lensing argument. The evidence doesn't exist for resolving stars and galaxies through a gravitational lens. That has not happened. So that was his bold assertion. So the object will be to demonstrate that that's just not the truth. Probably should do that maybe right now. What the hell? We'll just pop gravitational lensing in, and then we'll get. Oh, all I got was a question mark. Yeah, it's funny. Doesn't it? You can't cut and paste pop-up chat. I mean, that's kind of silly. Must be a reason for that. It's conspiracy of the evil. Let's see, gravitational lens. Let's try the keyboard shortcut, see if that works. Control V. Oh no, Control C. Paste. Yeah, that worked. Okay. This is, my mouse is a little bit dysfunctional, so maybe it fucked up somewhere. And then we just go with the images. Well, here's one right here. So lots of little bits there, lots of little discrete stars all over the place. Let's see, images. I want the Wikipedia page. I want the image page. Back to the search, images. All right, let's see. Here's the smiley face one. Okay, so lots of different colored bits from different, lots of evidence that this is a galactic source, lots of stuff swirling in specific ways, bright spots, dark spots, circular spots, very, very much detail involved, revealing the character of something. And this isn't, unfortunately, these images are, never as great as you need them to be. But clearly, everyone, like I said, won't be like, oh, that only happens occasionally. No, it'll be almost every single image that's supposed to be lensing is going to have distinct character that reveals what the source of the lensing is. Let's look at these little swirly bits. Now, this is an interesting image just because it's so bad. Let's see. All right. Now, look at that. I mean, it's just, these are just, all these little lines now. So some of them aren't even properly spherical. So one of the rules of gravity is that it has to have symmetry. And so these ones that are out of alignment with the circle couldn't possibly happen. I mean, even if you turn the circle on its edge, there's always symmetry in the lines. You can't have all these uneven, they can't be shaped like each lens is a different shaped lens because the gravity is, spherical. The objects are spherical for that reason. Gravity always goes spherical at a distance. But yes, there isn't much detail in these. These are just little shards of light. Well, some of them are a little more than others. But this is clearly something else that's going on here. But as I pointed out, if you had an explosion here and stuff got knocked out from the explosion, it could produce remnants like this, and especially ones that are broken, because the broken ones could have passed over some other object that actually broke them into two pieces. So that would make these little broken spots make more sense. But anyway, it's not a good argument. This doesn't fit the rules of gravity, and they just don't care. Simply. I mean, if this is one object in the background, again, you'd have to, the gravity out here is going to be so much less. How could it bend it to the same exact focus as the gravity in here? There's no logic to it. It can't. Gravity doesn't work that way. All right. So enough. And so we shall surrender and say, fuck it. That's a good idea. I need the other, where's the pop out? Just make sure no other troll said anything. Let's see. Draft. If you shot a gun out the back of a moving train, the speed of the bullet, what would happen to the bullet? If you shot a gun out the back of a train moving the speed of a bullet, what would happen to the bullet? Yeah, it would fall out of the gun. It wouldn't even move, actually. It'd just sit there. Yes, that's the way it works. They've already done the experiment, okay? Like with a basketball. They threw a basketball off a moving truck and the basketball just went down. That kind of thing. Straight down. Will know horizontal motion with correct. Ideas on photoelectric effect. I don't need to have any ideas on it. What's again, it doesn't, I've already done videos on it, but I mean, there's nothing dramatic about it except that we already know that electrons are under tension and it requires energy to free them of their tension. So obviously in my theory, the photoelectric effect is just merely explained by the fact that it's a tipping point argument. If you want to knock something out, if you hit it with something and then you wait too long, the thing vibrates and moves back into its position again. And then you hit it again, it vibrates and moves back into its position. But if you hit it quickly enough, then you can knock it out of its position. So yes, ultraviolet light knocks photons out of the position because it hits them quickly. Infrared light is too slow and the electron vibrates back before the second one hits. So the wavelength of the infrared light is longer than the time it takes an electron to move and move back. It moves back and then moves back. I mean, they obviously oscillate to get back in their position, but the point is the electron oscillates back to its position before it's hit again, so you can't knock it out of its orbit, quote unquote, which isn't really an orbit. So I'm just saying there's nothing about the photoelectric effect that necessitates a wave theory of light, nothing. And it clearly is clear evidence in some sense that light is a corpuscle, that it carries a discrete amount of certain energy. But frequency doesn't mean it has more energy, it just means that it can apply more effect. Two slow bullets, I don't know, there's two can't say slow. You can have more effect with a gun if you shoot bullets fast than if you shoot them slow. Like I said, if you want to try to break something or knock something over, you can get a different effect if you shoot the bullets quickly versus if you shoot the bullets slow. The bullets all have the same amount of energy, yet you've just changed the time period over which you impose the energy, and that can be important. So it's not that ultraviolet light is intrinsically more energetic. It's capable of transferring energy more readily. And it's readily is the wrong word. It just merely the time matters. That's all. It matters how fast my fist is moving. No, that's not wrong again. That's not changing speed again. It just matters how fast, over what period of time, energy is imposed on something will change the effect it has on the something. So it's like being exposed to heat. If you took all the heat I'm exposed to over the whole day and concentrated it into just 5 minutes, it would burn me to a cinder. But if you expose it to over the whole day, then it doesn't do any damage. It's not like the amount of heat is different. It's just how it's being. It's a word for that. How it's being imposed. Wrong word. How it's being projected. Probably not the best word either, but yes. All right, so I guess that's enough since it's ground to enough of a halt. So till the next time and such, so forth and whatnot. Yeah, I understand, but by that reasoning, couldn't you argue that it would be affected by light intensity? Retracted his comment again. Jesus. Comment retractors are irritating. Yeah, I don't remember it now. Good. I waited long enough to answer to forget the question. Yeah, there's nothing else to say. Time matters. That's the simple answer. Same amount of energy, just imposed over a different period of time, and that makes a difference, clearly. But the little bits themselves didn't have more energy. They're not intrinsically more energetic. Uh, just the gun argument. I mean, I could follow if I could fire 10 bullets per one per second, and I could fire 10 bullets one every half second, and the gun hasn't produced more energy. There's no more energy. One stream of bullets is not more energy. But clearly, if it hits the bullets hit something, it can appear more damage can be done. A different kind of a different kind of effect will be affected. Same energy. All right, now I'm done. And we'll say so anyway. So till the next time and such. Really wasn't on the subject again. Wasn't much physics.